A final incision into the body of the beast, and the feat was done. And so I became Dragon Slayer 1 for some reason. And all of that happened over 1.5 years ago. Took me 77 hours to achieve, even though current speedruns are clocking in a little bit over 3 hours, and that's on a higher difficulty. But worst of all, was documented in its entirety. Because my name is 57batsibis, and now that I have played RuneScape for the very first time, I came to a crossroads. Do I continue this journey, or do I take a break? Well, or I would redo what I have just done, applying my knowledge acquired, but I would do it in the highest difficulty possible. And so it happens that a old school RuneScape noob attempts an ultimate Ironman with the goal of once again becoming a Dragon Slayer. 1 for some reason. And just like that, I was back in Lumbridge, the place where everything always starts. But in contrast to playing the game for the very first time, now I'm living the dream. I get a do-over, but bring the knowledge I've acquired in the past. A mechanic I would love to have in real life, to be honest. But here it should make everything so much easier. This time I do know where to go, what to bring, and how to overcome the problems along my way to achieve that elusive dragon kill. And all of that for the small price of not being allowed to use the bank or trade with other players. I think I should be okay. Because how hard could this really be? I mean, this is RuneScape after all. We are merely just left clicking. At least that's what I thought at the time. And so I came to the hardest decision of this entire run. Where do I even start? While there is beauty in beginnings, there's also the torture of endless opportunity. And now that I have mastered the game, I am not just 57batsibis anymore, but the Batsibis. And while I meditated on where to start by killing an imp due to certain PTSD coming up, I made a decision. Wouldn't it be worthy to just start with the easiest quest there is? Makes total sense, so let's get it. And by it, I mean we're gathering ourselves some milk, acquire an egg, and obtaining some flour, which I have conveniently already done with my first action on this character. But to be honest, that shouldn't be to anyone's surprise, right? I talked about this. RuneScape, left clicking. I have mastered this. And here, I can even prove it. Because, well, god gamer I am, I have this hunch that I might need those 3 items for this quest. And me remembering this so vividly has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that it probably took me almost an hour for the first time to even collect all of that stuff. So I will not be taking any further questions from here on forth. Thank you. Once arriving at the cook in question, before even accepting the quest of course, it does turn out that even he finds it to be quite the coincidence that I brought exactly those items. And I gotta say, it's kinda cool that the game actually added quest text for people that bring the required items before even starting the quest. Got me with that one. I mean, this is the least you could do for god gamers like me, of course. And all of that concludes the first quest in record time, obviously. Just further feeding into my arrogance, confirming that there is no way this wouldn't be an incredible run with flawless execution. And I'm guessing there's no way I could die, as I have seen all the danger there is. And so I got to work. And while it is way below my means, I helped shearing some sheep, reunited 2 tragic lovers, well, almost at least. That one's not on me. I easily solve a murder mystery and was overall just engaging in incredibly heroic actions. But one fundamental flaw was obvious very quickly. The payment for said tasks was way below what a unique talent like mine would deserve. And so, despite my incredible knowledge about this game, I had to do some testing, as my former self really just relied on its Cape Empire to fund my bills. While I couldn't trade with players anymore, this simply wasn't an option, and I had to activate my inner handyman. And I crafted myself a little bit of gear here, some fancy weapons there, and always double checked the monetary value they would bring with the local vendors. And it does turn out this is not really good, like at all. None of these. It doesn't even matter what I tried. None of the professions were in any way comparable to just slaying goblins until my inventory was filled up and I would just sell all the junk I found. Not only rewarding me with dopamine points, of course, but every now and then breaking the monotony of Goblin Massacre with a little bit of a clue scroll. And those turned out to also bring a quite substantial amount of money. Well, or just straight up item upgrades. So while that was not quite the outcome I expected, I I guess I'll be stuck in this room for the unforeseen future, grinding away. And given that I do need combat stats in the future anyways, this might just do. And so I continued the circle of, well, running in a circle and eventually vendoring all the crap to whoever would even take all of this, until I achieved a combat milestone that would unlock additional heroics. And so I got to play Dragon Balls again. And as you might have seen, there was a yellow bead in my inventory already. This, funny enough, I instantly got on my second imp kill a while back. And while it was essentially just wasting space up to this point, getting it that relatively quickly, definitely something I would be okay with. Something I did learn about this quest in the past, this one's better done on the side. You have to collect 4 beads, 1 from each color, and the drop chance is 1 in 25.6. And while I don't actually quite know what that means, past experience tells me it is a lot. Especially when you need exactly 1 color in the end, and it drops everything but that color, of course. So my extensive background knowledge on this quest made me first of all upgrade my gear, because somewhere while being stuck in this room for too long, I kind of decided to be stuck in here for even longer, and instead of speeding up the grind by spending some money early, I decided to wait it out until I could buy the best gear available to me, because one thing's for sure, we will not be crafting any gear in this run, will we? But with that out of the way, my heroics could commence by engaging in a little bit of a rescue mission, along the while getting my 3rd imp kill, obviously no drop, and while I was hard at work at a disguise, my 4th imp kill got me the red bead already. I know I already established this picture that I am quite good at this game now, and given that I'm already halfway done with one of the most tedious quests there is, I don't know what more you need. Then again, I also know what early luck in video games usually means. That's right, imp number 5, 3rd bead. That's what it means. At least when someone like me is playing a game like this. I think I mentioned this before, right? RuneScape is just clicking. Come on guys, this isn't hard. The only thing hard is stopping myself from the urge of clicking on every single highwayman I find. Might be a leftover from my alter ego. Then again, every bit of money counts in this run, so I'll let it slide. A bit confusing is that the next imp actually didn't drop the last bead. I don't know what is up with that. Surely this isn't a bad omen, is it? Be that as it may, I have important things to get back to. I'm still kinda busy with human trafficking, but the good kind, don't worry. But I would just continue, just like here, to click on any imp that I would find along my path and just let the game do its thing, like dropping the last bead on my 7th imp killed. And I was aware of the significance of this moment visibly through hesitating to even pick this up, because compared to my last time attempting this quest, there is no way we already did it. And this right here is the very moment prompted by this drop where I broke my rule and googled the drop rate. Pretty much why I was able to show it to you earlier, but technically that's a rule imposed to a different character. Also, I've blindly played through this in the past, so I think looking this up is perfectly fine, and was actually essential, as that was the moment where I figured out what feat I have just accomplished. I don't quite know how RuneScape loot exactly works from this, nor do I have the math skill required to figure this out, but the average kill count for this quest should be a little bit higher than 7 kills. And from this point on, there was no doubt in my mind, this run was blessed, and so am I. So I once again returned the balls, and the additional motivation acquired by this achievement made me propel through progression, essentially flying towards that dragon fight. So I removed the wall someone else built, but I had to pay for, engaged in a sneaky way of transporting alcoholic beverages, killed some nerd in his basement, solved yet another mystery, stopped a gruesome war through the power of fashion, until one of the last quests remaining, I had to set sail, traveling to undiscovered lands. Well, or instead I ended up here, an island on which I have to essentially play therapist as a group of men decided to have a psychotic break all at the same time. But there is a textbook solution to this, the world of psychology well known, it's murder. But not just any murder, we're also setting fire to the guy's house first. But then again, no big task for me. Remember, I'm a guy who found a bunch of balls real quick, and all I have to do really is just click on the guy, to then find out that I am not really dealing dealing any damage. And neither is he, and there isn't really much happening at all, is there? And so I started thinking. I obviously had quite the time for this, given that nothing happens right now. And I did come to that conclusion that I don't remember the fight this way. And it slowly dawned on me, maybe there is a repercussion speedrunning through this game. Maybe just focusing on beating up goblins has some negative consequences down the road. But probably worst of all to accept, maybe, but only maybe, I am not after all as talented as I thought I was. And the game might be a little bit more complex than just left clicking. Well, fuck. The massive ego hit aside, what happens to all my stuff in an Ultimate Ironman run? Anyone knows? Really just asking for a friend. Well, a said friend is getting back to his point of demise as quickly as possible. Good thing that I died on one of the quests that puts me as far away as possible from the respawn location. Now, wasn't that clever? One other little worrying detail, usually there's a timer indicating how long your stuff is still out in the world to collect. After that, you can collect it somewhere else for a little bit of a fee, but none of this seems to be the case. And all of that combined with the worry that I would have to regain all of the things that I have grinded for so hard merely through the investment of time again made this one gruesome walk back, let me tell you. Especially as the tutorial island isn't really telling you what happens once you die, because I did find that place to be a bit dangerous, no? So I had to figure it out myself, and this walk, as much as it was emotionally straining obviously, was quite transformative. I eventually do make it back to the other side, thankfully do find all of my stuff littered on the floor, pick it all up, dust it all off, put it back on, and once I was standing here, just as if nothing ever happened, one thing was for sure. Easy choices do lead to a hard life. And if I wanted to slay that dragon one more time, I would have to change my approach. And the very first thing that was painfully obvious in the fight just now, bringing a bunch of stakes that are effectively healing for around nothing isn't really gonna cut it, especially not in the long run. So fine, guess I will have to settle for something that I tried to avoid for the longest time, but well, it eventually caught up to me, and I would have to go for a classic old school RuneScape grind, which ironically brings us back to left clicking. Because in order to beat this quest and, well, eventually the dragon, I need the best healing option available to me. And given that I will definitely not grind out a bunch of pizzas, means that I will have to do a bunch of fishing. A whole lot of bunch. Which also is, yet again, connected to a whole lot of bunch of clicking on fishing spots. A detail I this time am not ridiculing, but embracing. As much as the little detail that this time around, my inventory is looking a little bit different when I'm going for a fishing trip. To be fair, efficiency is something I have never really bragged about, but given that my gear now has a lot more value to it on this run, and I can't just store it in a bank, having only almost half your inventory available to you at all times, it definitely slightly alters the gameplay. One thing does stay the same though, the almost therapeutic rhythm of fishing up a whole inventory of fish, with whatever can be considered a whole inventory here, burn half of it at the attempt of cooking, and then selling whatever is left after your attempt at culinary greatness, and repeat. With only disruption to the serenity being a new scenery every now and then, both in your inventory and surroundings. And also the occasional magical chicken slaughter, because not only do I kinda wanna get rid of the runes, while also using efficiency. Oh no, because I definitely need a higher magic level to beat a magic guy. Makes sense. Also, there's a whole nother beast of magic that I have to beat eventually that I both mentally and gameplay wise have definitely put off so far. So combining that with my task at hand of fishing is maneuvering me into heights of efficiency my gameplay has absolutely never seen before. I am not only managing my inventory slots, trying to waste as little as possible, but I am also combining multiple skills that I need to get better at for a as optimal as possible time usage, which in itself is a logical approach, but for anyone that has seen my RuneScape gameplay so far, let's say if efficient and inefficient is a spectrum, then I'm not even on this spectrum, I'm on the other side. I was playing a whole different game, to be honest, but now I have truly ascended. And so I was grinding out all bunch of colors of fish until I eventually reached pink, introducing me to a new problem if you try to stock up with fish, and always around half of your fish gets burned trying to cook it. You are doing a lot of runs to have a full inventory of edible fish. This might be an issue further down the road, won't it? For now, I significantly upgraded my emergency potential, have become better at the arts of magical murder, but that's okay because I'm also way more into religion now, and that has always justified all sorts of killing, so we're good guys. But most importantly, all of my hard work and me now going for hard choices has ultimately made my life easier. Which once again, ironically, shows itself that it is now easier to assassinate a guy. And ever since I started playing this game, I still need an answer. Are we really the good guys? I am still not sure. What I am sure about is that I have conquered the Corsair curse. And not just by blindly doing things I have already done before and rushing through content, but by genuinely earning it, which has ultimately changed the trajectory of which I approached this run. And so we have a little catching up to do. And after a slight monetary setback, I got to work. And wouldn't you know, better fish enhances my stamina. Of XP collection, that is. But somehow all the roads always lead back to the goblins. So I had to branch out. My first endeavor was a little bit of a different ordeal. I couldn't resist. But I eventually have to make nails, don't I? So I wanted to get the ball rolling early. But I also successfully upgraded my sparring partners. Technically still trying to figure out which ones are the best when it comes to combat XP. But here there's also this layer of income that I still try to figure out how to do efficiently. So I beat up the big guys, beat up the small guys, always selling all the things they involuntarily hand over to me, or actually use them to further progress my professions, and as per usual interrupting this rhythm by finishing clue scrolls. They give me ridiculous amounts of money that I can access, because I'm on an Ironman run. And so after finding what I presume to be a rare cape, worth a potential 37,000 gold, I sell it for 400 to keep my business local. I would never use this corporate machinery that is the Grand Exchange. Disgusting. And I am definitely not mad that I missed out on quite the money here. However, there was still one thing that I regardless was putting off until now. The Shield of Araf West. As despite me playing without other players, in this one, I need another player. And after I was guided through by a multitude of people the last time I did this, I technically do know what I have to do, but that whole part of trading keys and notes to get that whole thing done turned out to be a little bit more difficult than initially anticipated. To mine and probably everyone's surprise, I got that chat thing to work relatively quickly, found someone to do the quest with, but it was a quite somewhat positive surprise to see that even someone that looks like a seasoned player also has no clue how we're now supposed to do this thing. Well, or it turns out that this guy that plays ever since 2007 has actually never done this quest before. To be honest, a little bit unsure how that works, but okay, I've figured worse things out, haven't I? And it was a quite nice change of pace that for once there's two people standing here completely confused as of what to do, because whatever we tried, either I couldn't interact with the item, or well, we couldn't trade it. And this back and forth continued for a bunch of minutes until my new friend turned over to me and I could pick it up this time around. As it turns out, the whole difference was that he had to press use instead of drop, obviously. And with that little hurdle out of the way, there was nothing that could stop me. We got the shield pieces, we cashed in the money, and eventually it was time to say goodbye. And wouldn't you know, we finished the quest, which means there's a whole lot of green in my quest log, other than one quest remaining. And it was once again time for Dragon Slayer. One. For some reason. Which also meant it was once again time for a RuneScape grind. But this wasn't just any grind, as to even get to the point of the recommendations, which definitely didn't do it the last time around, would require so much more effort given that I can't just buy my way out this time. As every single piece of gold, as much as every piece of equipment, and ultimately every single piece of XP has to be acquired by me, myself, and I. So let's get it. Skill number one that I was focusing on, the magic skill, as this is the one that I'm most unsure about. I still don't really know how high of a level I really need to not get instantly blown up by that dragon, but on top of it, it's the most expensive one. I can't just go out and mindlessly left-click goblins anymore, because here I need to buy the runes, because I'm definitely not farming them myself. I know that for sure. So once again, another monetary setback leads me to chickens, because I have finally ascended to doing things efficiently. As not only will I be farming magic with the lowest attacks possible, I will also farm some bones, but more importantly feathers, which we then transform into fish, standard alchemy really, that we then bring all the way here to transform them into HP once my HP is gone, allowing me to hopefully farm magic a little bit more efficiently with higher HP opponents. And also keeping the good old rock, paper, scissors in mind, of course. It's also those chickens where I'm reminded once again that RuneScape players are a little bit different. As there was this guy approaching me, starting to ask all sorts of questions, how long I've been playing this game, if I've ever had lots of money, if I ever had more than 50 million. And I got this sense because he kept running after me, and well, most likely because he eventually asked that he wanted to trade me. So I slightly hinted at the fact that I cannot do that. And this guy was level 101. So yeah, all that was left to do was for him to disappear without a word in shame, and for me to get a little bit of a monetary restock down here. And better looking boots, of course. But the recently acquired addition of efficiency now begs a question. What kind of area or which opponent would be the best to farm? Keeping in mind that not just XP matters, but also the loot we get and the money we make through that, but also the time that we are somewhat investing. So how much is your time worth is a reasonable question to begin with, but when we now layer a video game on top of it, I was genuinely thinking this through. Holy shit. So welcome to my Tour de Gielinor. We started out strong by beating up a bunch of barbarians, did a full-on transition to the Varrock Wizards, followed by a mining intermission in the desert, just to return to violence in the desert with the guards or the ogres, it doesn't really matter, but you might already have guessed it, it always ends up being the goblins. But all of this wasn't for nothing, because I've actually come to a conclusion that I technically didn't want to have, because it turns out doing mining and then using it for smithing is very lucrative, an answer I never wanted to have. I wanted to beat things up, of course, but not only do I need smithing level to eventually make nails, I'm also able to craft better gear that way, but the monetary efficiency is unmatched. But looking at the going prices for runes these days, this might have to be it. So I guess we're stuck in this desert a little bit longer, swinging at rocks, swinging at big guys, and overall just try to make numbers go big. And all of that just to ultimately reward myself for that grind by doing a trade of financial coins for life-saving armory. As I have on purpose not upgraded my chainmail all this time, just to again buy the ultimate piece available to me after a very long visit in the desert. And also after seeing that the adamant plate body could technically be created by smithing, but you have to reach level 88 and I'm already struggling to get to 34. I don't think so. But then again, this was the last piece of the puzzle, as this was the level of gear I wanted to reach to give this whole thing a try. And after I have successfully bankrupted myself by buying all the things I needed, it was time. And I'm not really showing you the pre-quest to the dragon fight again. I mean, there is 3 episodes out there where you can see me struggling through that for the first time. So maybe the most notable parts being I once again killed this guy with the demon sword because I still think, or at least it felt, better than the scimitar, despite all of you telling me that that is not true. I now know where wood planks can be found outside of the Grand Exchange, but probably most important, most of you urged me to maybe go look for a different entrance to the entire dragon thing, and I might have found that, and this might have been a very good find, but well, one thing after another. As first, we once again set sail, and we once again tragically lose our cabin boy and awake on Crandor. And while I technically did come prepared, this was really just meant to be a reconnaissance mission. As I do remember my last fight with the dragon, it might have taken me a few more attempts than one. Before I even engaged in the fight, this was where I was looking for that shortcut that everyone was always talking about. And it does turn out you can actually sneak through this wall and enter the VIP area of this place, I guess. And orienting on the minimap icons, this is technically where the shortcut should be. Then there's this thing saying enter cave entrance, which is once again one of those things only allowed for rich people, which brings brings me to one of these points that in retrospect are really awkward to watch, but I was looking about everywhere where that shortcut could be, just to be distracted or released by a minigame. And once I was able to still not piece this one together after returning, I decided to postpone that for a little later. As for now, I got bigger fish to catch in the form of a dragon. And so I once again am entering Elvarg's lair. And I was finally back, and the fight was on, with a horribly looking start. Again, I didn't expect too much to begin with, but I was definitely not prepared to be this incredibly far behind, and I eventually did press every button available to me, but the outcome didn't really change too much, did it? And after then burning through my theoretical health bar in a record time and barely making a dent in the dragon in the process, I had to eventually come to the stage of acceptance. This is not looking good, and we are definitely not winning this fight, but I have come prepared, and my somewhat bumpy road getting here in the past prepared an exit strategy. So elegant. So simple, and yet this is the first time I was actually using it. But one way more important point, it was painfully obvious that I am in no way prepared to slay a dragon. And I repeat, I was well aware that this was merely an attempt to get a benchmark. But when the benchmark looks worse than your first ever attempt at this dragon fight, you might have an issue. And given how I dealt nearly no damage, it might be a bigger issue. And as I have also established that maybe I don't know everything about this game, I once again have to admit I wouldn't know how to properly fix this issue, because literally any of the stats I have could be the reason why this is going south, which brings me to a rather familiar state of confusion where only trial and error is able to fix it. And while I did know that only a classic RuneScape grind can make us move forward, I wouldn't really know which one, so might as well pick just any. So I did what I pretty much always did when I was in this situation, I just realized, and I did some magic. But I was also once again at this point, do I now want to invest my time and therefore my money to get my skills up, or would I rather invest in some better armory? And as I didn't even know which the right answer could technically be, there's this layer of laziness coming in as well, where I want to fix this problem, but I want to do as little work as possible, of course. So I kept going until one fateful morning, 43 magic. And I can now superheat an item, whatever that means. For me, that means I am now 5 level higher than my last dragon attempt. And for me, enough to give it another try. Pretty much just to figure out how important the magic stats really are, and if grinding out dopamine points is the way to go, or if I should rather lean towards making more money again and upgrade my gear. So let's stock up on fish by doing what I pretty much worried about earlier, fill up my inventory, burn a bunch of it, fill up my inventory again, to then burn a bunch of it. It's a great little system, but there's something more to this place than it essentially rejuvenating me every time. And if my cartography skills earlier have given me a little bit of an idea, could this be it? Could this be what will finally prove how incredibly incompetent I am? The fucking rope is the exit. Not that cave thing, no. It's that rope that I just simply overlooked. I mean, it kind of does look like everything around it, but I just straight up missed that earlier. Fascinating. Fine. Let's go kill a dragon. And even though I've done this rhythm in the past, I was genuinely interested in how a little bit of combat stats and 5 more magic levels are making a difference. And if it would be enough for me to just get a little bit more money, buy a bunch of runes, and practice a little bit more of the magic thing. And as my crustaceans got less, so did my chance at success. That was a good one. Not this attempt though, as pretty much nothing changed, like at all. I am still barely making a dent in the dragon, and while I once again had to prematurely call it quits, I also had this reoccurring moment of this did give me an answer, but not the one I wanted. Because I've just spent a few hours grinding a bunch of money, then using the money to up my skills, and I barely made any progress. But well, there is one other thing I could do, but that does require more work. But let's be real, I am way too deep into this to turn around now, and we really gotta do whatever it takes at this point. So let's get it. Part of my little revelation is also the fact that upgrading magic didn't necessarily stop the dragon from dealing damage to me when fire is being thrown, and I was always able to hold my ground with just the basic attacks. So the main issue is really just fighting back. And as far as I understand, these are pretty much dictated by the strength and attack stats. It's only one thing I can really do, beating up more big guys in the desert. And I don't really know how to portray the fact that I have spent probably up to 20 hours in this desert already, beating up small guys, beating up big guys, beating up rocks. And as much as I've grown incredibly weary of this place, it has always been the most progression for me. I guess there is some sort of a life lesson in here that something about the thing we hate the most would be the most useful to do. Because in my case, not only have I picked up lots of money, lots of XP, but also a certain understanding of the mechanics of this game. Because let me tell you, once you do something for a very long time, you want to get more efficient at it. I'm starting to understand you guys more now. So I, for example, started picking things up in between attack swings. I started burying bones in between attack swings, and overall planned out my next guy to click on while still fighting the current one. Again, things that sound relatively basic for probably every one of you. To me, that was a massive progression as well. And so the hours passed by, and actually days as well, because I couldn't bring myself to do this in one sitting, obviously, and so I continued to upgrade the variations of all of my combat stats, and I did a little bit of a test, and it turns out just working on my stats still wasn't gonna cut it. But this is merely just me now revealing the revelation I had earlier, and it now being double confirmed. I will have to upgrade my gear, but the problem being, in an Ironman run, this is incredibly expensive, and we have established that time equals money. But seeing those 15,000 gold staring at me after spending around 10 hours in the desert, and this not even being half of what a sword upgrade would cost me, let's say I had a little bit of mixed feelings about that. But what you gonna do? I was simply in too deep. And so I furthermore got to work. And not only did I have to grind out the level to even be allowed to wear all of that armor and weaponry, but I also had to gather the money on it. We talked efficiency, so there's essentially only two ways of getting both things done. Going to the desert, killing more big guys, and swinging at more rocks. And I have truly accepted this as my fate. Again, I am now embracing the left click and not fighting it anymore. But it was also simply because I didn't figure out any other way of doing this. That was until I hit a certain milestone. One that I completely ignored, as you can see, because to be honest, I didn't think much of it, and I was completely locked in, of course. A little later, some investigation followed though, and it does turn out I can block magical attacks now. Isn't that convenient? And all of that exactly when my inventory was filled to the brim anyways, and I had to do a little bit of a reset. Might as well give it another try. And after doing provisions and entering the cave through my newly acquired entrance, which is actually making things a lot easier, I now do understand the sentiment of you guys for me to urge me to have looked for that probably a bit sooner. But be that as it may, it's time for another dragon. And I'm not only doing that because I haven't really made crazy amounts of progress in the monetary areas, and this is after another few hours of grind, and merely the sword upgrade is still nowhere to be found. So to say that this attempt is a strategic decision made out of calculating my odds, no, this is purely emotional. But now I'm here and we're giving it our all. At first thing, I am obviously using my new prayer skill acquired, but better yet, I'm actually hitting the dragon, and for quite a substantial amount as well, which technically is another answer I never wanted to have. Putting work into your character and, well, your stats actually has a positive outcome. Oh, fuck that. Why is putting in the work always the right thing to do? I hate that. But other than me actually being able to fight back for once, there's also this other little detail that this time the fire attacks don't deal any damage. Almost as advertised by the game and its skills. But the way more obvious part is I am sustaining my health bar way more, which allows me to unsustain the enemy's health bar even more actually. And it seems, just like in the good old days, that I have once again crossed a threshold of progression without even noticing it, I guess, but more rather by actually pursuing something entirely different. I mean, a better sword would have definitely helped, I'm almost certain, but merely the goal of upping my skills to reach the threshold of being allowed to wear the weaponry was already enough. But that tiny little detail of not being burned to a crisp every few seconds might have actually made the difference. But after a gruesome grind, that was partially not necessary, because I technically just wanted the bones, right? Could have saved myself from so many hours of clicking on rocks. But be that as it may, I once again make the final incision. And I once again done the deed. The only thing left to do, go for another one of these transformative journeys. And I really don't know why I didn't just port back right away. I couldn't tell you. But so I get to use that back entrance once more. But it also gave me a little bit of time to think, as quite a lot has gone into achieving this, but mostly it's merely just time. Time clicking on small guys, time clicking on big guys, but especially time clicking on rocks. And given the nature of the challenge, there just is no way of cheating the system. And technically I really do like that. Hell, even the first character I played was pretty much an Ironman run, if we're honest. And so it actually happened that once I have finished my journey and turned in the dragon's head, and once again am allowed to call myself a dragon slayer. One for some reason. But I've made a decision. Because once you see that a rune plate body costs 84,000 gold, and again, there's no way of cheating the system, and I already struggled getting 32,000 gold for a new sword, and there is no way that I will be sitting approximately 30 hours in front of a bunch of rocks and be clicking on them. Oh, hell no. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is time. There might be an alter ego of me that desperately needs to return, as allegedly there is this guy that never played RuneScape and is now blindly trying it for the first time. But he only played the tutorial so far. Well, maybe we should change that.